Hi guys, how are you? Well, welcome to Unit 9. This unit is dedicated to the Austrians, or they are also known as the Habsburg dynasty. It is a mixture, bueno, es una unificación de dos unidades del libro, la 12 y la 13. It's a mixture. We've done more times this along the year due to, well, the extent of our content. They are too long, too large, too wide, and we are forced to compact them a little bit. So as a result, we have this Unit 9. It's dedicated, as I said, to the Austrias, la dinastía de los Austrias, también conocida como la dinastía de los Habsburgo. You have here all these, the main character, all the kings we are going to study in this unit. This is the index we are going to follow through. Today in this class, we are only going to talk about this first point dedicated to Charles V, the empire, his domestic policy and his foreign policy. Another day, another class, we're going to talk about Philip II, his son, the heir to the empire. And in another class, we'll talk about the Austrias in the 17th century. We normally, the historians divide the dynasty of the Austrias in two centuries. The Austrias of the 16th century, these ones here, Carlos V and Felipe II, Charles V and Philip II, they are called Austrias Mayores, because normally it's widely believed that during the time of their reign, the Spanish Empire lived its peak of splendor. The maximum supremacy of the Spanish Empire was lived during the 16th century. In the 17th century, though, the Austrians are going to start losing territories. It's going to be Philip III, Philip IV, and the last Austria, Charles II. And due to this loss of supremacy, bankruptcies, they run out of money, they start losing wars, losing territories. Due to these facts, they are normally known in the traditional historiography as the Minor Austrias o los Austrias menores. Así que, resumiendo, Austrias mayores siglo XVI, Austrias menores siglo XVII. Aunque, como digo, es algo de la historiografía tradicional y bueno, ya está en revisión, pero generalmente se les conoce así. Siglo XVI, Carlos V, Felipe II, siglo XVII, Felipe III, Felipe IV y Carlos II. Como veis, es bastante sencillo. Sobre todo los Felipes, van uno tras otro, ¿verdad? Además, abrimos con Carlos V o Carlos I de España, V de Alemania y cerramos con Carlos II. Es fácil de recordar un poco la consecución de estos reyes. Well, as I said, in this first online class, we're going to talk about Charles V. So let's go. This is a diagram, a timeline for you to locate a little bit yourselves in the context we are talking about. When we abandoned the last classes, the last unit, we were talking about the Catholic monarch and how they built the authoritarian monarchy, how the project of Columbus was given money, and that led to the discovery of America. And well, as a transition from that time to Charles V new reign, we're going to talk about Juana I de Castilla or Joanna I. Well, remember who's Juana? And remember the foreign policy of the Catholic monarchs. Well, we already saw in class this family tree, in which I don't know if you remember the marriages, but we were talking one class about the importance of the diplomatic alliances the Catholic monarchs carried through with the different European governments with one main objective. What was that main objective? To isolate France. As a result, they're gonna make alliances to marry their daughters and their son with different European royal families. And the result was this. They firstly married their daughter Elizabeth with the King of Portugal, and they're gonna make an alliance with Juan and Juana, Joan and Joanna, with the lowlands, with Burgundy and the Austrias. They're gonna marry Catherine with Arthur of England, and as a result, what they have is a series of alliances that isolate France in the middle of Europe, that is now surrounded by enemies or alliances against that French nation. Well, the most important is that, we had a son that was Juan. Juan was going to be the main heir for the Catholic monarch's territories, but unfortunately he died very young, just very soon after he married Margarita de Austria, 6 months later. And due to his death, the next heir is going to be looking for males. Is going to be Manuel el Afortunado, who is the son, who is going to be Miguel, who is the son of Manuel Afortunado and Isabel, the daughter of the Catholic monarchs. But the Prince Miguel, who was brought to Castilla to be educated with the Catholic monarchs, died also being very young. So we don't have any more male heirs. Who's next then? The next is going to be Juana. Then Juana is going to become the heir to all the Catholic monarchs' territories. This is how, when Elizabeth the Catholic died in 1504, Juana is going to become, together with her husband Felipe I el Hermoso, the kings that are going to govern from 1504 to 1506. Why only to 1506? Where Felipe died also too young, only 2 years after coming to Castilla. He died in a very strange circumstances after doing practicing some exercise. He got like a fever and he died very quick. Why strange circumstances? Well, historians have talked about natural cause, but we cannot dismiss very quick either that he was poisoned. Why would he be poisoned? Well, we don't know that, of course. I'm talking, this is just speculation, but it's not impossible because Philip represented everything the Catholic monarchs had fought for during their whole lives. Philip was pro-French in his policy. He had been educated in the Burgundy, in Bourgogne, so he spoke French and he felt really close to the French way of politics, and he was in favor to do an alliance with France instead of the opposite, instead of what the Catholic monarch has done during their whole lives, which was isolate France. Well, imagine the Castilians, the whole nobility and the court surrounding the Castilian court, seeing how Philip undo everything and did everything the Catholic monarchs had fight for during their reign. So, well, he died, and after his death, Fernando el Católico, who was still alive, and maybe you are thinking, if he was alive, why do we have Philip and Juana governing Castilla? Well, remember, Unión Dinástica, dynastic union. Elizabeth was the queen of Castilla, and she was only consort queen of Aragon, and Fernando was King of Aragon and Consort King of Castilla. That means he was only King of Castilla due to the matrimony with Elizabeth. Once Isabel la Católica, Elizabeth, died, he was no longer the King of Castilla. And Castilla had to be governed by the heir, the next heir, who in this case was Juana. After the death of Philip, Fernando is going to take the chance to become the regent of Castilla, el regente, not the king. He couldn't be the king anymore due to this dynastic union we talk about. He's going to become regent, as I said, up to his death in 1516. When he died, is going to be the son of Felipe el Hermoso y Juana I de Castilla, también conocida como Juana la Loca, ahora diremos por qué, become the next king of Castilla and the heir of all the territories his father and mother left him. Why is Fernando el Católico regent when Philip died if we have Juana perfectly healthy, perfectly alive? Why? Well, there's been a lot of the legend of Juana la Loca, ¿no? La leyenda de Juana la Loca. ¿Estaba loca Juana la Loca? Bueno, yo quiero decir así rápidamente que Juana fue una mujer que fue bastante maltratada por los 3 hombres de su vida. Primero, ella había sido educada muy profesionalmente en la corte de sus padres, pero cuando tiene que abandonar Castilla y marcharse a vivir con su esposo en Flandes, ella va a ser completamente apartada, incluso, bueno, ella se va a enamorar bastante de su esposo, pero su esposo, Felipe el Hermoso, pues la ningunea bastante en público, le es infiel y ella no acepta que no solamente el amor, sino también el sentirse ninguneada. Ella había sido educada como reina prácticamente, entonces va a llevar bastante mal este tipo de humillaciones y va a montar escenas de celos, pero también escenas reclamando una posición, su posición en la corte, una posición que se correspondiese más con quien era la hija de los reyes católicos, ¿no? Felipe la va a encerrar en su habitación para intentar someterle a su voluntad, incluso pues aprovechándose algunas veces de ser quien es, intentándola manipularla para que firme ciertos documentos. Ella se va a negar y de hecho, pues claro, pues como digo, va a montar ciertas escenas estando encerrada, pero claro, queréis vosotros si os encierra en una habitación vuestro esposo y os trata de esa manera, pues seguramente también gritaríais si estuvieseis encerrados, ¿verdad? Bueno, después de que su esposo la tratase bastante mal, aunque ella estaba muy enamorada, su padre, a la muerte de Felipe, también la va a encerrar en Tordesillas, en el convento de Tordesillas, para el resto de su vida. Es cierto que estaba inestable, pero como digo, no es locura, sino que es inestabilidad. ¿Cómo estaríais vosotros si hubieseis vivido esas circunstancias? Si analizamos la vida de Juana I de Castilla, es comprensible que en determinados momentos desarrollase escenas de ansiedad, de depresión, porque cualquier persona bajo sus circunstancias podría haber desarrollado una actitud similar. El caso es que su padre le encierra en Tordesillas y ahí va a pasar el resto de su vida. Cuando Fernando el Católico muere, viene su hijo Carlos V, pero su hijo Carlos V tampoco la saca de Tordesillas, sino que la deja allí hasta su muerte, hasta prácticamente su muerte. Les viene muy bien a los 3 hombres de su vida que Juana no esté del todo en condiciones para gobernar, o así ellos procuran que no esté del todo en condiciones para gobernar y ocupar ellos su posición, que realmente ella era la heredera. Well, we start for good with the empire of Charles after this introduction. Carlos I de España quinto de Alemania. Charles the First of Spain, the fifth of Germany. He's going to create an universal empire. When he arrived to the Iberian Peninsula, he starts the new dynasty, the dynasty of the Habsburgs. This dynasty was actually started by his father, Philip the First, but as his mother was governing, we consider him the first actual king of this dynasty in Spain. He is going to occupy for the first time the thrones of the full Iberian Peninsula. He's going to be King of Castilla, King of Aragon, King of Navarra, which can be seen as the configuration of the future Spain. It's for the first time, one person, one king is king of all these territories. He's not king of Spain yet. Spain doesn't exist yet. He is king of these different territories. He's king of Castilla, he's king of Aragon, he's king of Navarra, but all these territories still preserve their borders, still preserve their own currency, their own laws, or even their own parliaments, sus propias cortes. Cada uno de estos territorios sigue conservando sus características propias, sus leyes o fueros, sus sus fronteras, sus monedas. Acordaos de la unión dinástica. Esto no se rompe todavía. Esas condiciones bajo las que estos reinos se unen para ser gobernados bajo un mismo gobernante, pero no desaparecen ni sus fronteras, ni su moneda, etcétera, etcétera, que hablamos en clase, ¿vale? Well, let's take a look at the territories Charles I is going to govern from 1516 to 1556. He inherited a great deal of territories, and so he's going to become one of the most powerful kings around the world. From his mother, from Juana, he is going to inherit all the territories of the Catholic monarchs, that is, Castilla, the Indias, America, and Navarra. But from Aragon, his grandfather, Fernando el Católico, he's going to get Aragon, but also the Italian possessions. From his father, Philip the First, the handsome, de su padre Felipe el Hermoso, pero a través de su padre, de sus abuelos, his grandfather Maximiliano de Austria and his grandmother María de Borgoña, he's gonna get territory from the Habsburgs. Estos son los territorios de los Austrias, los territorios de los Habsburgo. The right to be chosen emperor, el derecho a ser elegido emperador, el emperador del Sacro Imperio Romano Germánico. All these territories that we have here in between these borders, these lines, correspond to the territories of the empire, el Sacro Imperio Romano Germánico. Sacro Imperio Romano Germánico, Holy Roman Empire. Remember, because we've already talked about the Holy Roman Empire when we talk about the Protestant Reformation, Luther and so, that in this moment, this place is completely fragmented, is being governed by the princes, the German princes, the German nobility, which they govern their small territories. It's very fragmented. They are sovereign in these small territories, but the only authority they recognize is the authority of the emperor. But the emperor is not a hereditary position, but it is electable. You have to choose the emperor. But only some princes, some of the German princes, had the right to be chosen emperor. Charles V is going to inherit this right, the right to be chosen emperor. Who chooses the emperor? The different princes that live among the Holy Roman Empire. And as we're going to see, Charles V is going to be chosen emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. That's why we call Charles V the emperor, el emperador. And he also gets Flanders and the Franche-Comté, el Franco Condado. Flandes, ¿vale? Todo esto. Y el Franco Condado, que es este territorio de aquí, ¿vale? Que hace frontera con Francia. he's going to be chosen emperor in 1519, using this right that he inherited from his grandfather Maximiliano de Austria. Well, this is the, lo digo ahora en español para resumir, ¿vale? La herencia de su abuela, bueno, empezamos con la herencia que recibe de su madre Juana. De su madre Juana recibe por parte de su abuela Isabel la Católica, toda Castilla, más los territorios americanos y las Canarias. Por parte de su abuelo Fernando el Católico, Aragón y los territorios italianos que vienen con Aragón. Por parte de su abuelo Maximiliano de Austria, los territorios de los Habsburgo, los territorios de los Austrias, la familia, su apellido es Habsburgo. Sus territorios son los territorios que se conocen como los territorios de los Austrias. Por eso a esta dinastía se le conoce tanto como dinastía de los Habsburgo como la dinastía de los Austrias, ¿vale? Y por parte de su abuela, María de Borgoña, recibe los Países Bajos españoles, de Spanish Netherlands, que incluyen Bélgica, Luxemburgo y Holanda, y el Franco Condado, que es este territorio que, como os podéis imaginar, hoy día pertenece a Francia y, como os podéis imaginar, el rey de Francia va a querer conquistar para sí. Va a ser uno de los territorios que se disputen con el rey de Francia. We talk firstly about the domestic policy of Charles, la política interior. Actually, Charles was born and he is going to be raised, he's going to grow up outside the peninsular kingdoms. And when he arrives to the Iberian Peninsula in 1516, he's going to be considered a foreigner, Borgoñón. He's accused of being Borgoñón. Actually, his mother tongue was French. He spoke French. And also for the Castilians, Juana, his mother, was still alive. And for them being alive, Juana being alive still, she was actually the true heir to the throne. So these are things surrounding him from his very beginning that has part of the Castilian nobility expecting his arrival with not the most positive attitudes. And for that reason, when he arrived, he was 16 years old. He's going to face great opposition inside the Castilian court. He is a foreigner. He's assisted by foreigners because he brings all the men of trust. He brings them from Flanders. He brings them here. And the first thing he's going to do, the first years he arrives, is demand a great monetary resource. He's going to raise taxes. Why does he raise taxes just arriving to the Iberian Peninsula? Because he wants to campaign to be chosen emperor. We already mentioned that he's going to be chosen emperor in 1519. But why? Why all this money to be chosen emperor? Well, he has to lead a campaign. He has to convince all these princes that vote for Charles to be chosen emperor. All these princes that are going to choose who is the emperor need to be properly convinced. Properly convinced, well, you need money to properly convince all these people to vote for you. It's a political campaign. He raises taxes and he gets all this money, and he abandons the Iberian Peninsula and go to the empire to initiate this political campaign. This is gonna cause a rebellion, because when he abandoned the Iberian Peninsula to actually receive the title, he's chosen, so he abandoned the Iberian Peninsula to actually be crowned emperor. He lived as regent, that person that is governing in his name, Adriano d'Utrecht, deja de regente Adriano d'Utrecht, a foreigner. So a foreigner, assisted by foreigner, he doesn't even speak Castilian. The first thing he does is raising taxes to pay for his European policy interest that the Castilian said, that is, you are spending our money in things that are not of our concern. So when he abandons in 1519 the Iberian Peninsula, leaving Adriano de Utrecht as regent, the revolt of the communities, la revuelta de las comunidades, is going to erupt. Well, that's because he didn't speak Spanish, okay? ¿Qué es la revuelta de las comunidades? 1520, 1522. Well, it is a revolt which is led by the cities of Castilla, the major cities in the interior of Castilla, such as Toledo, Segovia, Salamanca. They name themselves community, como se autodenominan comunidad, que se han levantado en comunidad, van a ser llamados los comuneros, por eso son conocidos como comuneros. The leaders are Bravo, Padilla y Maldonado. And, well, as you can imagine, they are going to be defeated very soon by the emperor troops in the Battle of Villalar in 1521. The leaders are executed, as you can see in this wonderful painting. Here in the book, you have a bit more information, because who are actually these people that are fighting against the emperor? They are mainly artisans and peasants. We also have a small quantity of low nobility, but mainly they are bourgeoisie and landowners. They opposed mainly to pay all these taxes, to pay the European wars and the fact of the emperor being chosen emperor. And they were very angry at the power of leaving all the decisions in foreign councillors of the king. They said that the Castilians' matters should be decided by Castilian people. What else? Just for curiosity, telling you that los comuneros that emerged in not only the cities I mentioned, but all the cities in the interior of Castilla, such as Madrid, Toledo, Cuenca, Plasencia, Toro, Valladolid, Palencia, Burgos, etc., which were in this moment the most important cities in the Kingdom of Castilla, are going to go to the convent of Tordesillas to see Juana la Loca, Juana I de Castilla, asking her to take the throne, to recover the throne in this moment, because she was Castilian, she understood the Castilian people, and they thought she was the rightful heir. But she refused to betray her son, even though her son didn't even pay attention to her. She was still in Tordesillas, and nobody cared to make her life a bit more nice. But she rejected taking the throne in this moment, betraying her son. And, well, as I said, the troops are going to defeat the comuneros in the Battle of Villalar, the 23rd of April, 1521. And, well, just telling you that the leaders and this revolt, esta revuelta, chicos, deciros que ha pasado un poco la historia con cierta simpatía por parte del pueblo llano, porque no se ha dejado de ver en todo este tiempo las peticiones de los comuneros como algo de justicia, como que lo que pedían, este levantamiento contra el rey y, bueno, su ejecución, ¿no? Pues no deja de ser algo rightful, porque lo que pedían era algo que tenía sentido, ¿no? Que lo que hacía en realidad era, frente a ese emperador joven, extranjero, recién llegado, lo que hacían era defender los intereses de la propia Castilla. Y también se ha querido ver en su levantamiento una última defensa del poder de las cortes. Acordados de esas cortes que hemos analizado, que estaban divididas en 3 estamentos: nobleza, clero, pueblo llano. El pueblo llano estaba representado a través de las ciudades, ¿no? Y serían estas ciudades las que se han levantado en la revuelta de las comunidades. Pues se ha querido ver en esta revuelta de las comunidades cómo esas ciudades piden, reclaman ser escuchadas al rey y se oponen a esta forma de tomar las decisiones de forma completamente autoritaria que venía dándose desde la época de los Reyes Católicos con el establecimiento de la monarquía autoritaria. Y es que Carlos V y la dinastía de los Austrias supone el definitivo asentamiento de esa monarquía autoritaria construida por los Reyes Católicos y el fin del poder de las Cortes como instrumento de voto, aunque fuese solamente consultivo. Y bueno, prueba de que hay cierta simpatía y que ha pasado un poco la memoria histórica esta simpatía o esta concepción de los comuneros como una revuelta que buscaba el bien del pueblo frente a la autoridad de un emperador extranjero recién llegado, es que en las principales ciudades castellanas sigue habiendo esculturas dedicadas a los líderes de la revuelta. Por ejemplo, esta es la estatua de Juan Bravo en Segovia, en pleno casco histórico, o esta es la estatua de Juan de Padilla en Toledo. Y hoy día en Villalar de los Comuneros se siguen celebrando en Villalar, donde se celebró la batalla, y después de esta batalla de Villalar pasó a denominarse el pueblo Villalar de los Comuneros, y todos los años se celebran recreaciones históricas de esta batalla. Os dejo también como una prueba más de esta simpatía que digo que perdura en el tiempo, una canción de un grupo que se llama Mester de Juglaría, que es un grupo de música folk castellana que dedica un disco entero a este conflicto de los comuneros. Y os invito a que veáis, escuchéis alguna de sus canciones para ambientaros un poco en este tema y en esta revuelta. Y también deciros, aprovechando que está saliendo ahora mismo el color morado, que a posteriori la bandera, cuando se diseña la bandera de la Segunda República Española, se decide coger el color morado en honor a los comuneros, ya que se tenía la creencia de que el pendón comunero, es decir, la bandera que enarbolaban los comuneros, pues era de color morado, aunque a posteriori hemos sabido que en realidad era de color carmesí, de color rojo intenso. Y bueno, simplemente por curiosidad, están bastante entretenidas estas canciones. But it's not the only revolt, because parallelly in Aragon they also have a conflict, the conflict of the Germanías, la revuelta de las Germanías, 1519-1523. It started especially in Valencia and Mallorca, and it's got a bit more social component, because what's the main cause for this revolt to happen? The main cause is the abuses of the nobility and the economic crisis. The nobility in Aragon got more powers over their fiefdoms than in Castilla. So the serf, the people living in the nobility fiefdoms, had worse conditions of life that in Castilla. They asked in this revolt of las Germanías a restriction in the nobility rights. Querían que se restringiesen los derechos nobiliares que eran bastante amplios en Aragón, más amplios que en Castilla. The main leaders are going to be the urban guilds, ¿os acordáis de los gremios? Los gremios urbanos of artisans and traders, but also peasants associated. They are going to become associated in hermandades o germanías, que en valenciano sería germanías, que son grupos o hermandades, ¿vale? Que se autodenominan a sí mismos germanías, that are going to oppose these feudal lords. They are also going to be defeated by the orders of Charles V on March 15, 2023. The monarchy is going to come out reinforced out of this conflict, because after defeating all these comuneros and germanías, the authority of the monarchy is going to be completely unquestioned. The Cortes actually are going to become a submissive institution. What does it mean? Before the Cortes, before the establishment of the authoritarian monarchy, the courts were more powerful and the power of the king was less. But as the power of the king grew, the Cortes' power went down. And with this defeat of the bourgeoisie institutions, the guilds in Mallorca, the peasants in Castilla, because both of the uprisings, the comuneros and the germanías, had this component. They were members of the cities. After their defeat, the Cortes are going to be very submissive and the power of the Cortes is going to decrease definitely, meaning the definitely establishment of the authoritarian monarchy with the Austrias. Here you have Charles V and his wife Isabel de Portugal. Now we talk about the foreign policy of Charles V. He's going to face France, he's going to face the Turks, and he's going to have to face the Protestantism in Europe. So we start with France. He's going to fight basically 5 wars with France, fighting for the European hegemony, the European supremacy. Who is more powerful in Europe? Who controls European stuff, European policy? The centers of these tensions are going to be mainly in France, mainly in Italy, especially the Dukedom of Milan in here. But there are going to be other centers such as Navarra in Spain. Why Navarra? Because Navarra, before being annexed by Fernando el Católico, remember? In 1515, used to have a alliance, very close relationship with the French dynasties. They married between themselves. They have relative family alliances, and due to that, Francisco I de Francia, who is this king here, who is the king of France right now, had interest over Navarra, but he also had family ties that indirectly gave him rights over the territory. So he's always going to have an eye put on Navarra and his interest and his family rights over the territory. That, of course, is not going to be liked by Charles V. And Borgoña, the Franche Comté. That territory that we pointed out, it was in the border of France, that nowadays is belonging to France. And of course, Francisco I de Francia pues no le gusta sentirse rodeado de territorios del emperador. Tiene en el norte el Flandes español, ¿no? Los Países Bajos españoles. Si bajamos un poquito hacia abajo tiene el Franco Condado, Franche-Comté, y si seguimos hacia abajo tenemos los territorios italianos. Y bueno, a partir de los Pirineos, pues ya los territorios españoles, pero van a ser zonas de tensión. The main success of Charles is going to be the conquest of Milan. Milan was here in a very strategic position. It's also very important for the Spanish territories because it means a connection, a closer connection with the territories in Europe. It's easier to access to the rest of our territories in Europe, having Milan as a strategic position just there in Italy. Carlos V is going to conquer Milan in the Battle of Pavia, after the Battle of Pavia in 1525. And well, this battle is going to be very important for one fact. Not only the defeat of France, but the anecdote of capturing the main king, even the king. Bueno, el soldado de los tercios españoles que estaba luchando en la batalla de Pavía se encontró con un soldado francés que estaba ricamente vestido, su coraza estaba muy decorada, las piezas que llevaba eran de la mejor calidad y pensó que estaba apresando un noble. A los nobles, normalmente a los mejor vestidos en las batallas se les daba buen trato porque después se pedía un rescate a la familia. Y era algo que engrosaba las arcas del ejército español y del rey español. ¿Cuál es su sorpresa cuando se dan cuenta que habían apresado al mismísimo Francisco I, rey de Francia? El gozo de Carlos V era interminable, ¿no? Bueno, aquí en esta fotografía veis ese encuentro entre Carlos V y Francisco I de Francia. Francisco I de Francia va a estar preso en lo que se conoce como la Torre de los Pavones. Esta es la fotografía actual. Esto está en Madrid, en la Plaza de la Villa. Y esto es un dibujo de cómo debía ser aproximadamente el siglo XVI-XVII. Es un palacio que pues estaba en pleno centro de Madrid y en esta torre pues es donde va a estar preso el mismísimo rey de Francia. Por supuesto, va a ser obligado a firmar el Tratado de Paz. En ese Tratado de Paz se entrega a Milán, reconoce a Carlos V como soberano de Milán, de ese ducado de Milán que estaba en esa disputa durante muchos años con Francia y incluso debe dejar a sus hijos como cautivos en España. Sus hijos van a crecer en España como cautivos del rey español como muestra de su compromiso con ese tratado. Por supuesto, Francisco I, nada más salir de España, lo primero que va a hacer va a ser renegar de la firma de ese tratado y volverá a atacar una y otra vez a Carlos V. En general, la balanza acaba cayendo siempre del lado de Carlos V, que puede considerarse en cierto modo vencedor durante esta etapa de los intentos de Francia de ganar poder o alzarse con la supremacía europea. The second front that Charles V is going to fight in is going to be the Turks. The Turks in two parts, territorially inland with the siege of Vienna in 1929. Well, this is the Ottoman Empire. You remember we started the modern age. We consider the end of Middle Ages. One of the main events that marks that end of Middle Ages is the fall of Constantinople. Nowadays, Istanbul, that is taken by the Ottoman Empire, by the Turks. But this empire didn't stop there, but continued its expansion. It's going to become one of the most important, one of the strongest, one of the biggest, largest empires of history. And in this moment, it's if we don't count the American territories, it's bigger than the Spanish Empire. And well, it's going to mean a threat to Europe, especially in the moment at the beginning of the 16th century that they arrived to Vienna. Vienna itself is the door of Europe. The troops of the Ottoman Empire, the Ottoman troops, are sieging Vienna, and it's going to be the Emperor Charles V with the tercios and an army that is going to go to Vienna and release the city, is going to break the siege. Va a romper lo que se conoce como el sitio de Viena, el asedio de Viena, haciendo que Viena no cayese ante los otomanos y no se convirtiese en parte de ese imperio otomano. In the Mediterranean, as you can see, all this part is belonging to the Ottoman Empire, so the Mediterranean Sea is divided in Muslim Mediterranean, Christian Mediterranean. What we have here, it's a lot of piracy in the Mediterranean Sea. We have piracy. The most famous pirate is Barbarossa, who took a lot of strongholds in the north of Africa, putting in danger the trade of the carried out by the Christian ships that were navigating all over the Mediterranean Sea. Actually, the emperor never controlled that the Mediterranean was a safe sea for the Christian ships. And the final conflict is going to be the defense of Catholicism against Protestantism in the empire. We've already talked about this because we were discussing a lot about the Protestant Reformation and Lutheranism. Charles V, at the beginning of his life, he was very influenced by the way of thinking of Erasmus de Rotterdam. You remember we talked about Erasmus, we read his texts. We consider Erasmus one of the first. He was a humanist, and he is one of the first humanists in criticizing openly some of the attitudes and status of the Catholic Church. Not meaning that he was a reformer. He was a humanist and he always remained Catholic. But he, as a humanist, criticized some of the parts that should be changed in the Catholic status, in the status of the Catholic Church. Charles V was educated by Erasmus de Rotterdam. They, most of their lives, they wrote letters to each other, in which the emperor talked and asked for advice to Erasmus of Rotterdam. So that made Charles V, in his young years, to have a tolerant spirit. And at the beginning, his attitude towards the emergence of Protestantism was tolerant, was quite soft. They even had a meeting with Luther and asked Luther to deny some part of his doctrine that he didn't. And after the failure of diplomacy, after the failure of these meetings and these how can we say, diplomatic tries to stop Protestantism, the military conflict started. The German princes, all these Protestant German princes that we talk about, saw the Protestantism not only as a religious reformation, it was also something that linked with their political interest, their political ideas. They saw it as an opportunity to defy the emperor authority, which was very big because Charles V controlled the European policy. they all became allied in what was known as the Smalkalda League, La Liga Smalkalda. It's an alliance formed by all the princes, all the nobility, all those princes inside the Holy Roman Empire that wanted to fight against Charles V. They were united under the Protestantism as a new objective. But as I say, we have more interest playing inside. For instance, many peasants are going to feel attracted to Protestantism as a way of stop paying the tithe. Remember the tithe? El diezmo. Era una manera también de dejar de pagar el diezmo. The 10% of all your income to the Catholic Church. So the Protestant Church didn't have that tax, so it was very profitable just to become Protestant. They're gonna fight. The Smalkalda League and the Emperor are going to fight in a war between 1546 and 1447, and Charles the fifth is going to defeat them in the Battle of Mühlberg, la Batalla de Mühlberg. Even though they are defeated in the battlefield, actually they are gonna sign the peace of Habsburg in 1555. That means a victory for the princes, not for the emperor, because even though the emperor defeated them with an army, it is very difficult to stop ideas, and they are not gonna be stoppable, actually. In the Peace of Habsburg, the emperor is gonna concede free cult to the princes. Culto libre, de libre elección para los príncipes, es decir, el príncipe elegiría el culto para su territorio, para su estado, para cada uno de estos estados alemanes. Cada estado tendría la religión de su príncipe, la que su noble eligiese. El pueblo tendría que acomodarse a esa religión. This is not actually a victory for the emperor because he's capitulating. He's given them the freedom to choose their religion, either Protestant or Catholic. But as I say, it's difficult to stop the ideas. Charles V is going to regret very, very much during his whole life not having killed Luther, not having imprisoned Luther when he had the chance. He regret the tolerant ideas he had in his early life because he considered it is his fault and the fault of the Catholic Church, because the Catholic Church didn't react on time, that they, with his tolerance and the late reaction of the Catholic Church, their late reaction in general to the defense of Catholicism, that allowed Protestantism to spread, and now it was impossible to stop. He's gonna regret it his whole life. And an example to show this feeling that he had regarding Protestantism as the great failure of his life as emperor is that he actually separated the Holy Roman Empire territories from the rest of his inheritance. He left the territories of the empire not to his son with the rest of the territories, but to his brother, the new emperor Fernando. Su hermano Fernando de Habsburgo, su hermano menor, va a ser el nuevo emperador del Holy Roman Empire. Chicos, se pensaba que realmente era un problema enorme, o sea que el gobierno del imperio a él le había resultado tan complicado. El gobierno de estos príncipes alemanes pensaba que estaba haciendo un favor a su hijo sacando este territorio de su herencia y dejándoselo a su hermano. Pensaba que era la mejor forma de solucionar el problema, porque él pensaba que este problema ya no tenía solución. De hecho, el protestantismo seguirá expandiéndose fuera del Sacro Imperio Romano Germánico y veremos cómo durante la etapa de su hijo Felipe II este protestantismo se expande también a los Países Bajos españoles. Bueno, aquí os dejo unos textos que están en castellano para que comprendáis cómo se sentía Carlos V respecto el conflicto protestante. Para él era algo bastante personal porque él se quería erigir como un defensor de la cristiandad. Él había parado a los protestantes en el perdón, a los turcos en el sitio de Viena. Él se había educado como un príncipe humanista, un príncipe erasmista, un príncipe que aunaba los principios del humanismo con el cristianismo y veía cómo dentro de sus propios territorios avanzaba el protestantismo y era incapaz de frenarlo en sus propios territorios. Él, que se había alzado como ese defensor del catolicismo, como ese defensor del cristianismo, lo va a considerar el error más grave de su vida. Well, and finally, homework. This map commentary that you have to do of the empire of Charles the First or the Fifth. It's in your book and it's also part of your booklet, so you don't have to do it twice. You do it now, and then when you're doing your booklet, the rest of your booklet, you don't have to repeat it. So you can do it directly in the booklet that is already uploaded here in Aula Virtual. First, you have to draw the map and color the territories respecting the key, la leyenda del mapa. You have to do a list with all the territories that Taz inherited from the from her mother, his mother and his father. And then you have to do a map commentary. I am leaving you the instructions here so you don't have problems while doing it. First, you do an introduction. This is a map of, so you introduce a map. Then an analysis. Remember, in the analysis, you describe what you see. You describe the key. We can see the territories inherited from his father, Philip de Habsburg, who led him the French Comté, the Netherlands, the Spanish Netherlands, Luxembourg. In purple, in the other color, we can see the territory. Then, in the commentary, you are going to tell everything about the foreign policy of Charles V that we already studied. We just talked about. You're going to start the sentence doing something like, to maintain the